Morant with a running start. Elevate! Oh, it dunks! Oh, my goodness!
Tie game in overtime. Gasol will turn. His heat is gone! Memphis on top. 7-10 remaining. Conley now with three. Count it! A 15-point lead for Memphis. And Blake Griffin gets into it on the floor with Randolph. Hard to tell if there are any punches being thrown under there, but Griffin took acceptance.
Adams going long. Morant! He hit it! John Morant! Insanity!
You gotta be kidding me.
Welcome to Grits and Grinds, a Memphis Grizzlies podcast. My name is Keith Parrish. The Grizzlies waived and stretched the contract of Mamadi Diakite. This was a roster move that occurred literally minutes after I posted my show yesterday. So I figured might as well talk about it. There are some interesting wrinkles to this. This is something that was anticipated as a possibility for what the Grizzlies could do. They went ahead and did it, so let's get into it right after I tell you again about Underdog Fantasy's NFL season promo. With the start of the NFL season just around the corner, they are offering an incredible match bonus to new users. If you sign up for Underdog Fantasy with my promo code FBBF, or by clicking the link in this episode's description, Underdog will match your opening deposit up to $1,000. That's $1,000 in bonus cash when you use my promo code FBBF. All right. So long, Mamadi. We barely knew you. We never got the J-Huff Diakite Virginia reunion moment for the Grizzlies. The acquisition of Diakite was actually 100% financially motivated. We always knew it was like 90% financially motivated. They're just trying to get rid of the Zaire Williams contract and stay out of the luxury tax so they could re-sign Luke Kennard. But there was some wonder from me. Did they actually want to see the guy play basketball at all? Because he did specifically fit a position of need as a big man who could stretch the floor a little bit. But no, this was just a financial move, much like in previous years acquiring Josh Christopher, who they would then waive. They did not have any interest in the actual basketball player. They're just worried about the financial ramifications of the deal. They now have an open roster spot. They're only carrying 14 players. I don't think they're going to fill that roster spot. This is not a move to clear up space on your roster to go sign like a Nasir Little or somebody. They're not using this on a free agent big. Lamar Stevens is not coming back. Right now, this is just the buffer zone. They're just getting out of the tax. Now, the specifics of stretching the contract, this is going to move them about $2.6 million away from the luxury tax line. That is enough space to give a minimum contract to someone like Scottie Pippen Jr. or to Jay Huff. If you want to promote those guys off of their two-way deals into a regular contract on a regular roster spot, you don't have space to do that, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think that might happen later in the season, but it's not going to happen right now. Right now, that's just going to be the buffer zone. It's not enough money to sign someone with more years of NBA experience to a minimum contract. Minimum contracts are based on the years of experience you have. So right now they could sign somebody making just a little bit, one of the first few years in their NBA careers. Like we could add those guys, but we can't add a guy who has like 10 years of experience or anything. But even if you added one of those guys, I think your margins are going to be too slim. Not knowing what's going to happen this year, you want to have more wiggle room. So I think they are just creating some space. And the way it happens, if you don't know, when you stretch a contract in the NBA, you pay out what is owed on that deal over multiple years. And Diakite's contract only had $1.3 million guaranteed. There was 1 year left, so the formula is you take the number of years left on the deal, multiply it by 2, and add 1. So 1 year left times 2 is 2. Then you add another year. So you pay out this $1.3 million over 3 years. So you're paying $400-something thousand in dead money this season and in the following 2 seasons. And it's not that big of a deal, carrying a little bit of dead money. I mean, you add it to the dead money that we're paying Kennedy Chandler this year. One of the reasons we're in this mess is because in the triple down on youth summer, we drafted Kennedy Chandler and gave him the richest second-round contract any American-born player had ever gotten or something like that. But it's not that this $400,000 can be that big of a deal. It's just the accumulation of things that we are focusing so much on the financial picture and not on the actual basketball picture. I thought Matt Hardlicka, who's a Grizzlies fan who writes a Patreon about the Grizzlies, he did a great job of describing this and echoing my sentiments. I mean, you guys hear me give my opinion over and over and over a lot, but I thought Matt basically said my own opinion, but he said it well. And so as a differing opinion or as a different voice, I'm just going to read you briefly from Matt Hardlicka's Patreon. Go ahead and subscribe to his Patreon. It's very, very cheap, and I like how he writes about the Grizzlies. But he says, to the Grizzlies' credit, they have dodged the tax without sending out major assets. It's been small cuts at the edges. But every time someone says these moves don't matter, they are always wrong. This is where I totally agree with Matt. Yes, the Grizzlies can sign another minimum scale contract now, Matt writes, but we aren't considering the unknown unknowns. How many deals are they not able to even consider because for the time being, the luxury tax is a no-pass line? I agree with that totally. Matt goes on to say something I've said over and over and over. The Grizzlies have their three best players entering their peak age. At least one of them is injury prone. We don't know how many total years of peak age play we'll get from Ja, Jaren, and Bane, all healthy, considering last season was decidedly not one of them. Matt finishes up with, rather than maximize this season, they've elected to fill the roster with rookie-scale contracts and Luke Kennard on an expiring. The message they're sending to me is not that this team is ready to compete for the Western Conference Finals, but rather that the front office is in wait-and-see mode and has been asked to dodge the tax for now. 100% how I feel. Carrying 14 players instead of 15 players does not help you on the basketball court this season. You could push back and say it gives us more flexibility in trades. We can bring in more players than we send out. Yeah, right. We're going to trade something? I mean, maybe you could trade John Conchar for two guys making less than him. Are those two players going to be better than John Conchar? No, is my rhetorical answer. And I don't know how you get excited about that as a Grizzlies fan. They have 2 years left with both Ja, Jaren, and Dez under contract. I mean, maybe Jaren will re-sign when his deal is up, but we can't sign him to an extension because of how low his contract is going to be in the final year of that deal. We have 2 more years of Ja, Jaren, and Dez in their prime together. They told us years ago they were going to spend whatever it takes to compete. I don't know if something's changed. I mean, maybe the Bally Sports situation that I've spelled out in recent episodes about that lack of revenue, that revenue stream decreasing, maybe that changed their appetite for going into the tax. Maybe the way last year went, they have less confidence in the team. I mean, we say it's all injuries, but maybe they're like, all right, maybe we're not going to spend money to build around this team. But like, they paid Brandon Clark and Steven Adams and John Conchar, and they extended Ja. They knew they would, but they extended Jaren. They knew they were going to pay Desmond Bane. And they said, listen, we're building up all these salaries, but we're going to compete. We're going to pay money to compete. And right now, they have not. They just salaried them to Zaire Williams. They have fewer playable NBA players right now than they did last year. At least last year's theoretically healthy team. It looks like they're making cost-cutting moves. Did something change where they said, all right, let's not actually spend for this season? Were they never actually going to spend into the luxury tax? I think an argument for that I've spelled out is they haven't used their MLE now for 3 straight off seasons when they had the opportunity to do that. In 2022, they had the cheapest payroll of every playoff team. And then they followed that up with the triple down on youth summer. And then last year, sure, they traded for Marcus Smart, but they had space on their roster and they had space with their MLE to sign a player, a free agent last year. They chose Derrick Rose on the minimum. And now this offseason, we went into it saying, listen, we can We can keep around all our players. We can use bird rights to pay Luke Kennard or whatever to keep him around. And then we can use our MLE, or we can use our Steven Adams traded player exception, or we can use these different things to bring in guys to maximize our chances of winning this season. We're going to bounce back from last year's awful season. We got, the silver lining. We get the 9th pick in the draft. We're going to use that on someone good, and then we're going to go out and trade for somebody or sign somebody and jump right back into the Western Conference and be at the top of it. But they went the cheapest route possible. I don't think they spent the offseason planning on how to win the most games possible. It looks like they spent the offseason dodging the luxury tax. They drafted Zach Edey, which we're all excited about, but they filled their biggest roster need through the draft, which is find a starting center. And then what else did they do? Nothing. They drafted a cheap Luke Kennard replacement in Cam Spencer. They drafted Jalen Wells, a second-round rookie to come in and hopefully help the Grizzlies win a playoff series. It's more of the same as far as them dodging the tax. And again, previous episodes, I spelled out why I understand it. They're not making that much money, but the idea of the NBA is to win. And this move, while Mamadi Diakite, probably not an NBA player, has nothing in his career that shows he's a definite NBA player. Now we're going to have an empty roster spot, something they've never done in the past. Well, I don't think since Zach Kleiman's been here have they gone into training camp with an empty roster spot. And maybe I'm wrong because, again, there's still, 6 weeks to go until training camp. But it looks like they're just going to sit under the luxury tax line and maybe wait and see how the season goes. If they start off 16-4 and they're like, okay, we're actually really, really good, so let's maybe go to the tax now and try to find some help. But it would have been way easier to find help at the beginning of free agency. There's way more options then. And they did not. They salary dumped Zaire. They used the picks they got for Steven Adams and for Xavier Tillman. They used them on Jalen Wells and on Cam Spencer. Cheap replacements. They used those picks on salary dumping Zaire Williams. Also, there's a chance they could have gotten rid of Diakite's contract without stretching it. They did not have to have his dead money on the books for the next 3 seasons. They could have probably paid actual cash to a team like the Jazz that's under the NBA's minimum salary line that has roster spots. They could have maybe paid the Jazz like $2 million to take the contract. But that requires the Grizzlies to spend money, and maybe they're not spending money. Maybe the Jazz said, no, thank you. We don't want your cash. That's your problem. But stretching the guy when it's possible you could have paid money to get rid of him and not have that on your books going forward, that's what many teams, I think, would have done, but not the Grizzlies. The team's going to be good. If healthy, the team's going to be very, very good. But I remain of the opinion you need to maximize your chances to win. You need to come up with escape routes when things go wrong. You need to have as many good players on the team as possible because I want to win big this season, even if Marcus Smart misses 30 games, even if Ja Morant twists an ankle and has to miss 10 games, if Jaren Jackson Jr. misses 20 games, if Desmond Bane's back acts up. Jaren, Ja, Dez, Marcus have all dealt with injuries at times in their careers, maybe a little bit more than most players. So I'd rather stack the roster as best we can. My baseline, remember, for the offseason, get players better than John Conchar. Edey, yes, but they didn't do anybody else. So I'm not that excited about the offseason. I remain confused when people say they had a good offseason. Even if you're excited about Zach Edey, we knew we had a draft pick. We used the draft pick. Everything else has been focused on saving money. And as a fan, that's not my favorite. Anyways, speaking of being a fan, the Grizzlies announced some specifics about their promotional activities before the season. You can check that out at grizzlies.com. The most interesting one to me is Scottie Pippen Jr. is coming to that Sounds game in Nashville on September 14th. There will also be a kids basketball camp in Nashville on September 14th. You can sign up for that at grizzlies.com. Come say hi to Scottie Pippen Jr., former Vanderbilt player, and me at the Sounds game, September 14th in Nashville. Anyways, if you want to support this program, do that at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. Come join the listener Slack channel. Come play fantasy basketball with me. You get all that at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. If you want to do underdog fantasy, use that promo code FBBF. All right. Hope you guys have a great day. I'll talk to you soon. Go Grizz.